back another Sunday at 6 p.m. on the Political Spectrum, our Black Media Network. We have, let me unmute Dante. I know y'all had some conversation, but Dante, you have a guest, and tell us who we have today.
So I have my friend Mike Scuso. We just was at the bar watching the Atlanta Falcons lose. So so came back home in time for the Political Spectrum and ready for the topics this weekend, actually.
Well, the good thing about it, Georgia didn't lose. And so, as long as the Falcons don't approach Kirby Smart, we good. Leave Kirby where he is. So, we always start with our first 10. The first 10 minutes, anything you want to start with? Anything in the news or, out there, hot topics in the political world?
I'm really focused on this debate that's coming up for on Tuesday. I think both candidates have something to prove, Trump and Kamala. No matter which party tries to spin it, Trump has to show that he can stay on message, and Kamala has to show that she can be an effective leader and not just ride off Biden's coattails. So they both have something each to prove. Another segue that I do want to talk about, I think the Justice Department investigation into this Russian case of how they are trying to persuade people to vote a certain way in our election. I think that argument is tired, and they really need to stop. Who's trying to produce this? Russia and a lot of other actors have always tried to interfere in our election. And I think the fact that they're using Republican talking points, that's not a coincidence. And I would take this argument a little bit more seriously if our government was to talk about the Iranian government, who actually did have an assassination attempt out on people in Trump's administration and also Trump himself. So I can't take it as serious. One thing I do want to quote from Bill Clinton's former campaign person. And he actually posted this 3 days ago. One interview, one debate, some rah-rah stump speech you read over and over. And voila, you have 50% chance of being president. Good gig if you can get it. No 3 debates, no years of primaries, coalition building, no detailed policy development, and no daily press briefings or tests of leadership. It's only the most important job in the world with a $6 trillion budget and thousands of nuclear weapons. The right thing would be 3 debates, real detailed policy briefings, and full availability to answer questions so the electorate could vote on an informed basis. That's what real democracy is. And then the last thing that I'll end on is Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris. And you know what? Actually, I'm happy they did that. The Republican Party don't want them anyway. We moved past that Bush era, and the Democrats can keep the person that they call Darth Vader for many years.
Well, I think y'all need him. He's only the most wisest. Honestly, after McCain passed away, Dick Cheney honestly is y'all granddaddy. So if granddaddy ain't on board, I don't know what y'all gonna do at the cookout. But I want to bring this up real quick. I want to give a shout out to Nikki Haley. She did an interview this morning with CBS Morning News, and she's staying true to form, despite the fact that, she and Trump have had her differences. I must get my head off with Nikki Haley, and I'll tell you all why I like her. She's always been a person that stands on her own, and she doesn't sway with the wind. And so I really wish you all had the common sense to have picked her and not a felon. But, we won't go there. But November 7th, or whenever the sentencing date is, I don't want you all out here tearing up the Capitol again.
It's actually November 26th, if I believe. Go ahead, Mike.
No, after his loss. But go ahead, brother.
Nikki Haley is one of the biggest flip-flopping politicians that I've ever known. She does whatever the political environment tells her to do, which is why she endorsed Donald Trump after saying she never would several times. She just does whatever the wind tells her to do, whatever floats her boat for the moment. If Donald Trump wasn't the nominee, she'd be kissing the ring of whoever was the nominee. She definitely wasn't going to be it, based off of how often she flip-flops. I just thought that was ingenious that you like her for that. Someone that can just change their mind at will. I don't admire that kind of person, but I'm glad you do.
Well, he's
I'll
voting
be
for Harris.
Well, I mean, at least we have the
Well, I'll be
foresight.
honest with
Who's
you.
elected.
If it means me being on cabinet or me sitting home, I mean, it's a check versus. So I mean, the maths. All right, y'all. We're gonna.
Mind you, me and Dante had this conversation earlier. The most powerful vice president in the history of our national politics was Dick Cheney, and for him to side with his daughter, and I don't think he was just siding with his daughter. I think he was siding with democracy by saying you can't have someone that tried to overthrow the government back in power, and for the Republicans to now have the Cheneys, the Bushes, the Reagans, and every figure before Donald Trump come out against him. What does that say about the Republican Party? It's not the Republican Party anymore. It's the Donald Trump Party. It's the MAGA Party at this point. So the Republican Party, as we know it, doesn't exist. This is the party of Donald Trump.
Well, and I will offer this because I'm a person that kind of sees both sides. That's like people saying it's the Obama Party. It's no longer the Democratic Party. But we're going to transition real quick, y'all. Let me. Clinton, how you doing? Really quick, y'all. Do introductions real quick, and then we will shift to our first clip. But Dante has a guest with us. This is Clinton, and we'll go from there. Do intros, Dante.
Clinton, this is Mike. Mike, this is Clinton. Clinton is our libertarian on the call, so he and I be ganging up on Bobby all the time.
These two haze me on a daily basis. I'm tired of it. All right, here we go. We're going to play the first clip.
To the rescue.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. We're going to play this really quick. All right.
There's a mass shooting in the U.S. every time you look at the news. The fact is, America has more mass shootings than any other high-income country in the world, and that number is rising. The FBI tracks mass shootings where 4 or more people are killed. Looking back over time, you can see that the number of these events and the fatalities have risen dramatically. And this decade is on track to follow that trend. So what is happening? There's a range of complex factors that lead to mass shootings, and each incident has its own unique set of circumstances. But one undeniable fact is that there are more civilian-owned guns per person here in the US than anywhere else in the world. In fact, when you break down the number of firearms in the US, it comes down to more than 1 gun per person. And that number is also climbing. During the uncertainty of the pandemic, about 1 in 5 American households reported purchasing a gun. That means that now, almost half of all American adults live in a house with a gun. For most gun owners in the US, firearms are not just a constitutional right, they're also a way to protect themselves. So what is being done to reduce mass shootings? There was a ban on assault rifles in 1994, but it was dropped 10 years later when a Republican-led Congress failed to renew it. In the years since, assault rifles like the AR-15 have been used in some of the country's deadliest mass shootings. From Sandy Hook in 2012 to Parkland in 2018 and Uvalde in 2022. After each tragedy, there are calls to action around mental health and guns. Some want to limit access to guns, others to arm more Americans for self-defense. And what we see time and again is that after a mass shooting, when politicians push for gun control, it actually causes gun and ammunition sales to spike.
Your
mic.
I want your raw reaction to that. Just your raw reaction.
Personal reaction. I want Dante.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your mic's going in and out.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
You go first, Dante.
Well, that's sure. Yeah, my internet is being weird, but I wanted our guest to give his raw reaction first.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Okay.
All I saw was nothing but facts spoken about the dangers of the current way that our country is, and the assault rifles ban or restriction from 2004. All the evidence of the mass shootings, especially that involves our schools, came after that. So I mean, it's point blank. Everything she said was factual.
So for me, I think we need to have I don't think we should have a knee-jerk reaction. And the knee-jerk reaction, in my opinion, is to confiscate guns. I think you can just take all the guns in America, but if people want to go out there and inflict true harm on people, they're going to find some type of way to really inflict harm on people, whether it's taking a knife to the school or building a bomb in their parents' basement or driving a car in the school. We do need to talk about mental health issues in our society, especially when it comes to young people. Social media does play a big, heavy influence on that. A lot of people don't have many outlets to talk to, and so they just go on social media, and that's their outlet. And some of the things that they see on social media is extreme, and they can put down social media, then they play their video game and they're shooting, and they can put down that video game, they can listen to music, and the music is talking about shooting. So we definitely have a cultural problem. When it comes to guns, I'm open to a conversation about what we can do to make sure the children are safe, and not just children, just anybody who's just trying to go watch a movie, go do anything, that makes them happy in life. I'm on all boards of trying to protect people, but just taking guns away, I don't think that is the best solution. In regards to school shooting, I mean, we built walls around people who had $1 million homes. Or not just $1 million homes, also colleges and universities. That's something that we can do as well. I'm somebody who advocates for having more police officers on school campuses. Some people might be against that. I'm also, and this might be very controversial, I'm one of those people who do think, teachers should have firearms. I don't think the teachers should be paying for their guns or their ammunition or for the training. I do think the county or their school district should be the one that's paying for all that, and that should be optional if a teacher wants to decide to do that. But we do need to make sure that there is some protection inside the school. And I think just, trying to take the guns away, trying to take the police officers out of the school, or arresting parents. I think some of these things are just a little bit extreme, and we're not thinking these things out. That's all I have to say, Clint.
Okay. I disagree with some of those facts. The United States is not the largest, gun ownership country or nation. That's a myth. Number two, the reason that gun sales spike during the pandemic or after a school shooting is because people fear that their gun rights will be stripped from them. And in a panic mode, they go out, and even if they've never owned a gun before, they purchase their first gun. This is why there's a spike in sales after any shooting or calamity or mass murder. People get afraid that the government's going to have a knee-jerk reaction, and they're going to take away their right to even buy a firearm. The reason firearms are so ingrained into our culture, we forget that before there was the United States of America, when we were a bunch of slave-owning coloners that pretty much murdered each other on a whim, the only protection we had was a gun, but citizens were only allowed to own a gun if they were military or ex-military. And because of that, the British Army could come in and do whatever they wanted to you because you had no gun. You couldn't stop them from breaking in your home, killing your children, robbing you, nothing. That's why we have search warrants. That's why we have gun ownership, because it was to keep us, when we formulated the United States, from ever becoming a victim of our law enforcement or our military. We will at least have a fighting chance. Not a guarantee, but a fighting chance. I think the reason that we're ignoring a lot of the school shooting is the FBI knows about a lot of these situations before they occur. But a lot of times, they'll purposely do nothing, especially during the election season. Because if something bad happens during election season, that's more money for the FBI in tax revenue. and that's more gun regulations, which means the FBI, the police, many other agencies can take your guns away and they get more funding for doing it. Then there's the underground markets. Once guns are confiscated, where do they go? Who sells them? Who makes the profit? We had a gun buyback right here in Savannah not so long ago. Where those guns go? Who sold them? Who made the money? I'm pretty sure they didn't melt them down and destroy them. So what happened to them?
They became jewelry.
Somebody sold them, somebody made money, and we never hear about it. All this is based on fear. Another thing, the pharmaceutical agency needs to take some accountability. There are a lot of people under 18 abusing prescribed pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you have drugs that are not supposed to be in your system flowing through your bloodstream and you're a teenager? You're not going to act like you're in your right mind. You're going to harm someone or yourself. And we are not taking any agency in any of that. Also, there's the breakdown of the nuclear family. There's the breakdown of church. There's the breakdown of neighbors being curious about one another. We've all become antisocial, building up our anger, popping pills, or worse, buying something on the street, no matter what age we are. And, you add a firearm to that, you have a disaster. So it's not just the guns. You can take all the guns away. If you don't resolve the other variables in this equation, then you'll just have mass stabbings. What are you going to do? Outlaw knives? You need to go to the source of the problem. You need to go to what's causing the dilemma, which is lack of family, lack of belief system, lack of guidance, lack of accountability and discipline, abuse of pharmaceuticals, and being isolated and trapped in your own world, losing it. Children need to get out. I'm sorry, but this should be sport. Us being on the internet, it shouldn't be our way of life. It should be something we do half of the day, and then the rest we're outside. And I think that's making a lot of people lose it, and that's increasing the mass shootings and the mass murders, no matter what age.
Let me add this. I think, Clinton, you said a lot that was absolutely right on point. What I'm sad about, and I'll go back to what Dante said, I need people from across the aisle to have conversations. This is a federal issue that is worse than the pandemic. I mean, I'll start with this. I think everything Clinton listed was absolutely right. I would add poverty to that list. Poverty is a huge driver of what we see with crime, right? Because people want to eat, and people want stuff, and people want to take care of their family. But I will also offer this, and I'm not a person who believes in a death penalty, but we're at a point now where it's extreme. I almost want there to be a federal law to where if you go into a building premeditated to commit mass killings, that you need automatic death penalty, period.
I agree.
No trial, take them out, because this has become a huge issue for parents who can't safely secure their guns. You probably need to get a life sentence for every murder and no parole. So you just die in prison, because what we've got now is there's no real consequences other than somebody going to jail. And so now you kill 20, 30 people, 40 people, 4 people, whatever. You get free cable, free food. We're paying the bill. You don't even have to work, and you're living. You may not necessarily get to go anywhere, but hell, you don't have any bills anymore, and we're paying for that.
I have a better idea. Rather than mass incarceration or the death penalty, why not just put them in an induced coma and use their bodily fluids to add nutrients to our sewage system and stuff? And become trapped in the they're not executed. And they can attack,
Hey, we could use that body for science. I like it.
Rather than killing them, we just use them like parasites, use the host. But as they murdered innocent people, why not use them like we're parasites?
Right.
So But
See,
and we're being a use homo and use all the chemicals in their bodies for whatever environmental friendly cause we
I
have.
like it.
I mean, it's cruel, but what was it in? They deserve that element.
I agree. I can't lie. Y'all, we're gonna stop.
I just want to say that this is partially a joke and partially also
No,
brainstorming.
we're gonna come
So
back.
please take it serious.
We have a quick message, and we'll come back. We'll come back.
Hey there. Are you ready to amplify your voice and embrace your passion? Tune in to Our Black Media Network, where community comes first and every story matters. We're here 24/7, delivering powerful content on everything from financial literacy to the latest in sports and mental health. We are unapologetically real, reflecting the heartbeat of our community with programs that inspire, empower, and drive change. Join us on all major media platforms to celebrate our unique voices and advocate for the change we want to see. With over 50K monthly viewers, our network is your go-to destination for authentic, engaging content. Be a part of the movement. Be a part of the change. Tune in to Our Black Media Network today and let your voice be heard.
Need your garments cleaned with care and with a professional touch? Then bring them to One Price Cleaners in Garden City at the Old Farmers Market on Highway 80. Service you can count on.
All right, y'all. Let me get this video queued up, and we're going to keep on that last subject. But I also wanted to hit this video for us as we talk about the Second Amendment.
Gun ownership has been intertwined with the identity of America since the settlement of the 13 colonies. The Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution guarantees Americans' right to keep and bear arms. But this simple phrase has led to decades of debate around gun control legislation and limitations on gun ownership, arguments that have gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. But to understand why the Second Amendment has provoked so much debate, we have to go back to the earliest days of the United States. At the time the Founding Fathers began drafting the Constitution, there were two major political groups, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Federalists believed in a strong central government. The Anti-Federalists, fearing monarchy and tyranny, favored strong state governments. This debate also spread to the young country's military. Federalists believed a strong standing army was necessary to defend against foreign attacks and large-scale domestic unrest. Anti-Federalists believed those attacks could be prevented by states' militias, who could be called upon in a time of national crisis. They were weary of large military forces, having experienced the oppression of the British Army both before and during the Revolution. This was a time when gun ownership and self-armament were already well established in the soon-to-be United States. Half of American colonists owned guns by 1775. More Americans had guns in their homes than had chairs or books. They had experienced British attempts to control through disarmament. But guns weren't just about protecting citizens from tyranny. Guns reinforced domain over property. And in the South, property meant slaves. Slave owners had a higher rate of gun ownership, and Southern militias focused less on protecting against the government's use of the military to oppress them and more on keeping slaves from fleeing their masters or from outright rebellion. James Madison, a slave owner from Virginia, had all of these groups in mind: Federalists, Anti-Federalists, militias in the North and South, when he drafted the Second Amendment. The Constitution allowed for the raising of a federal army, but the Second Amendment was introduced as a compromise to make sure that this federal army was not going to be turned against the citizenry, striking a balance of power between the states and the federal government. At the time, the Second Amendment was not primarily seen as an individual's right to bear arms for their own protection, but rather, as the writings of colonial thinkers like Noah Webster and Alexander Hamilton suggest, it was about enabling citizens to be part of a collective militia that would avert the use of the nation's military at home. Gun ownership evolved as the country expanded, and differing interpretations of the Second Amendment have developed over time. The Supreme Court has heard many cases involving the Second Amendment, but never established gun ownership as a personal right outside of the context of some sort of military service. That is, until 2008, with the case of the District of Columbia v. Heller. Dick Heller was a DC cop who applied for permission to keep his sidearm at home, but because the city had enacted a handgun ban, his permit was denied. The court ruled in favor of Heller that the DC handgun ban was in violation of the Second Amendment. In his majority opinion, Justice Antonin Scalia wrote that the Second Amendment guaranteed an individual right to possess and carry weapons in case of confrontation. The court did acknowledge some limits, such as firearm possession by felons or in places such as schools or government buildings. This was considered a departure from legal precedent, which had largely derived people's right to bear arms in the context of a militia. The Heller decision was a huge moment in the gun rights debate, as gun violence continues to plague the nation. Some believe that an armed citizenry is safer. Others believe more guns directly lead to more violence. However you see the issue, most can agree that debate surrounding the Second Amendment will continue to rage on.
So I know Dante was like, the last comment Clinton made was half joke, half truth, but I think it was more truth than joke. But also, let's talk through that and this video. But I'm one who believes that, as the debate continues, I agree that guns don't kill people, but I also agree that we don't have common sense conversations around it. I do think that the NRA needs to be pulled out of the conversation. I do believe that NRA does not need to be giving money to candidates, but we can't control that. But we do need people, whether you're getting funding from the NRA or from anybody that's in that conversation, that you need to have a whole lot of conversation on the issue.
Well, we need to remember the NRA is nothing but a lobbyist group, and any American can establish an anti-gun lobbyist group and fund their candidate if they want to. So that's how you defeat that. Just give another lobbyist group that's anti-gun to financially support candidates that they want to support. But you can't really control lobbyist group, and they're going to throw money anywhere they think it'll be effective to get their agenda across, just like any special interest group. As far as the incarceration, I do have an exception. I think if a murder takes place, even a mass murder, and it's someone 14, 15, under 18, I think they should get to a mental institution. But they're not an adult. Yes, they murdered a lot of people, but come on, they're a child, and for a child to do that, I know a teenager, they don't like hearing this, but technically you're a child. And if you murder people like that, you belong in a mental institution, not a prison. And then any violation, once they're released from the mental institution, which I think should be 25, you go straight to prison for life. I'm sorry, but you already murdered a bunch of people. The only reason you were thrown in the institution was because you were under 18. You hurt one more person, you go to prison next time when you're an adult, and you go for life. Period. As far as my idea of induced coma, that's simply to save money. That way you don't have to spend all that money on food. You don't have to spend all that money on toiletries, a catheter, an IV, a colostomy system, remember that colostomy bag?
The joke works.
They're trapped in their own body until they die, and then you cremate them.
And then they become fertilizer.
Yeah, you save money.
I do want to say this is bizarre how conservatives will apply the rules of today to the 1700s. Have we lost our mind? We are not. Gun laws that are based off the Revolutionary War don't make sense in modern society. Our population has ballooned since then, and half of our population still has guns, or right now purchases guns. The population has ballooned since then. Who are we fighting? The British? Why do we have to have automatic assault rifles in everybody's house? This is crazy to me. I mean, if you just look at the statistics, you look at what has happened since 2004 with the relaxation of all the rules, the gun violence went up, not because Not because, oh, well, there are more mentally disturbed people who just happen to have guns. There are more guns for mentally disturbed people to go get at this point. To me, it's just common sense. You need to regulate it. And for people to be talking about the Second Amendment, well, we need to revise that law. It's been 200 years of mass shootings, 200 years of this kind of thing going on. So we just need to move up with the times and quit blaming regulation. Because obviously without regulation, it's gotten worse. So maybe we do need to start regulating it. And to do the fear mongering that, oh, when they regulate it, they're going to take your guns from you. Bull. It's been bull for decades that they're just going to start taking your guns. Well, that's probably what needs to be done at this point. And for the liberals to be all weak about it and not to just call a spade, I'm over it.
Well, I will offer this, you all. The one thing that there's a one word, I'm a big language person. I'm about semantics. There's one word in this whole equation that makes people afraid, fear, unhappy, and that's control. I think if the conversation is around gun responsibility instead of gun control, we could get a lot more done. I think that even with me, I don't want to be controlled. And so if we're using the language of, I want to control your use and access to a resource that already is legitimately a right, we have a problem. But when we talk about gun responsibility, I think that's a different conversation. So gun responsibility to me means, yes, the Second Amendment, cool, whatever. I think that the intent of the law, the intent of the amendment is still valid. It's just, do I want to really control you, or do I don't want to make you to be responsible? So what I'm saying is, yeah, you can own a handgun. Sure, you can own a shotgun. Do you need really an AR-15? Is that responsible or not? I don't know. But that's something that I do think needs to be a conversation. Is how do we have responsibility and step away from that whole control aspect?
Well, I think we're also forgetting that a lot of these crimes, mass shootings as well, are usually performed by guns that are illegal and sold on the underground market. No serial numbers, no traceability. So the people that are abiding by the laws, and yeah, there are a few regulations on the books, they're usually not the ones perpetuating these crimes. Most of the crimes are committed by a gun that was taken from a relative, a friend, or bought on the underground market. So even if you increase the regulations, what are you going to do about the underground market selling illegal firearms? How are we going to finally resolve this? Now, we've had the Tobacco and Firearms Administration that has supposed to have, how I say, brought this under control after the decades of existing, and yet so many underground markets slip right by them selling firearms, and you want me to believe that they don't know about it? I'm sorry, but we have a lot of corruption and a lot of fingers in the financial pie.
I agree with that. We definitely do need to drain the swamp, to steal a catchphrase from someone. But one thing I do want to say, if we talk about changing the Second Amendment, that is going to be a non-starter for any sensible Republican, not extreme, but sensible Republican, to come to the table to even want to negotiate. Because saying repeal the Second Amendment is going to go in one ear and come out the other. When we talk about the language, I do agree with you, Bobby. I think the language do need to be changed. The problem that I have with that is the Democratic Party, and I hate to do this to y'all, but the Democratic Party is very masterclass at language. They will give you the rainbow, but then they will throw knives at you. And they will say words like responsibility, but really, once you go through the 2,000-page bill that they have, and they'll give it to you the day before you have to vote, knowing you can't read it, that's when the buybacks and all the stuff that Republicans would not agree to. So then it doesn't become a genuine conversation. I do think we do need to have a conversation, because, kids are going to school shooting up each other. This is kind of serious at this point. And I'm not sure which path to take. I'm open. I listen to all conversations just to see what I like, what I dislike. But this is a serious conversation that we do need to have. And Clint made a very good point. Like, all the regulations that we keep talking about, all the law-abiding citizens who are already following the laws are going to do what you say. The criminals ain't going to be giving up their guns. They're just going to be laughing at you like, oh, all these dumbass people who follow the law just give it their guns.
How about okay? So this is off topic, but this is why you probably need abortion, because you have these parents out here who are not monitoring their children. You shouldn't have had children in the first place. While we're sitting up here talking about, hey, we should stop abortion. Number one, if you're not going to monitor your child, and you're not going to monitor their behavior, you're not going to monitor them going to your cabinet, getting your gun, abortion definitely should stay legal. That way you couldn't have had children in the first place. It's crazy to me that adults are like, well, I didn't know what little Johnny was doing. You bought him the gun. You bought him the gun. Like, this is why abortion should be legal, so people like you can have children. Crazy to me that the parents shouldn't go to jail. Children don't raise themselves. You should go to jail. You did not instill into your child any kind of moral clarity about guns, gun safety, and using your head. They should go to prison, and you should be in there with them. Y'all should share the same cell.
So a couple of things. Number one, everybody, I'm pro-life. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out.
Pro-gun, pro-life, don't
hey,
pro-life.
We have a disclaimer, so hey, that's fine. We're good. Say what you want.
Number two, that was. I'll just say this this is why I keep like friends who are Democrats, Republicans, Independents. I don't care. I love to hear stuff like this, even if I disagree with it.
You disagree, or it's common sense.
I don't know. The way
to go to jail.
The way things are going in society nowadays, I'm kind of for late-term abortion at the age of 55. You know, yeah, you need to be aborted. I'm 55. I don't care. You should do it. It's a little late.
It's our Second Amendment right to abort you.
Yeah. But it's too bad we don't have a buyback at the abortion clinic. But oh well.
I want to do this over again. Hey y'all, we're gonna step away for another message, and we'll be right back.
See, that's why I like the Rebel. They actually made an excellent point. You women do need to start sharing your husbands. It'll make the world a better place once y'all realize that.
Out of everything they talk about tonight, that is the only thing you remember.
There are 8 billion people on this planet. 6 billion are women, 2 billion are men. So if you do the math, that is 3 women for every man. The scale has to be balanced, and polygamy is the perfect balance.
One man and one woman is all the balance that's needed.
Okay, think about this. If I had 4 women, you be my front woman, right? If I had a side chick, I would have to at least get one for the other side because there's 2 sides. And I would have to have one behind me. That's the backup chick. Just in case one falls off at the side, you always got to have that backup.
I am the only queen in your kingdom. Don't get any ideas, Zoo.
Now, all I'm saying is you should at least think about this.
My God will judge you.
Fine. One woman is all that's needed. But if you're going to keep doing this, we ain't going to be watching the Rebel together no more.
Looks like whoever made that commercial may need to be aborted because that was a lot. But anyway, we're back. We're talking.
Can I say one thing about I don't know if I said this earlier, but I am like really on the fence about throwing parents in jail about the acts that their children do. And while I think it definitely needs to be applied to what happened here in Georgia, there's no question that parents should not be charged for giving his son the ammunition after speaking to law enforcement. So I think that holds some weight there. The other incident, I apologize, I forgot what state it was, where the parents just missed signs. We as society, again, don't need to go to the knee-jerk reactions, because the only thing you need is some creative attorney later down the line to start using that same law to start locking up parents whose children are in gangs. and start saying, well, the parent should have been watching out or paying attention or being a responsible parent. Like, we have to be very mindful of some of these laws that we are trying to say, oh, let's create this law, not think of the long-term implication that might come along with it. So I definitely think we should have a conversation on how we should hold the parents accountable, but the whole let's just throw the parents in jail because their son is Gothic or daughter is Gothic and they decide to go do something terrible. Like, we have to be mindful of stuff like that.
I think we need to leave more autonomy to the actual judge. We can't keep making a law for every little detail in deciding these cases. We need to basically give some trust in the elected judges and make sure the judges are wise enough to take into account each different situation. If we try to make a law for every different situation, all we have is a convoluted red tape mess. You know, at some point, you're going to have to defer some judgment to the judge. I know people don't like that, but it can't depend on everything being detailed in the law on every situation. That's too much red tape. At some point, you need the human factor and the judgment based upon the situations. And in some situations, I do think the parents should go to jail, but it's only dependent on the situation. And we should leave that up to the judge in each state that's elected, of course.
Well, and I'll offer this too. I think you got to look at this stuff case by case, and you all have both said that. Yeah, in this particular case here, again, it goes back to being responsible. And Dante, you gave the Democrats too much credit earlier. They are not good at wordsmithing. Because they're the ones who, all of us are the ones who are using this gun control. A responsible parent can have 100 guns, but responsibility means locking them up, educating your kids, saying the consequences, and just having a whole conversation. I'll give a great example. I have two younger cousins. One is 8, another one I think is 10. They were playing Grand Theft Auto, and I sat them down and said, I'm going to let you play this game, but what you hear and what you see and what you do on this game, you better not take it anywhere else because your ass going to jail. Bottom line, they'll tell you I told them that. I said, you don't go to school cussing, the game said the game. But if you're not having responsible conversations and you got these guns, and like in this case, the daddy knew the guns were unlocked, your ass need to go to jail.
Yeah, that's common. I'm just being negligent. But are you trying to tell me I can't get in my car and run over people for free points at me? Because I wasn't aware of that.
You could. You can. You can do all of that.
When you say we have too many laws, apparently we don't have enough laws. If people are not, I mean, do we need to? And I get people are like, well, you know what, the Constitution is thick enough. But do we have to be more detailed? Probably, because common sense isn't common sense. Maybe we should be more detailed. Oh, by the way, go back to the Second Amendment. Let's add an amendment to that and be like, well, what do you call it? Is that an amendment to an amendment? What do you call it? I guess that would be, right?
I mean, a supplement.
A supplement? Okay. Now I have to go back to civics class on me. But you make it even more specific about gun ownership when it comes to your children, to progeny, and say, well, if someone under this age is found guilty of a crime, you could be subject to ... I mean, because at this point, it's like case by case. It almost needs to be blanket because so many parents in the news media knew something about their child, knew something. Well, they had this conversation and they kind of overlooked it, that kind of thing going on. No, you need to be in jail right along with your child at this point because you.
In those situations, yes, I agree with you. And it's not that we don't have enough laws. Our problem is we're not enforcing the laws that are on the books. That's why a lot of the things are occurring. We're ignoring them, or worse, we're ignorant and don't even know certain laws exist. So, police officers, agencies of all types, state and federal, need to know the laws and they need to start enforcing them rather than looking away. You remember Ruby Ridge? That incident with Ruby Ridge? It turned out that a family were gun collectors, and it was part of the red flag laws when they were in their infancy. And they assumed that it was something nefarious went with a gun collector that sold guns by the masses to other antique collectors, unique guns. They raided their property, and there were signs everywhere, no trespassing, you'll be shot. They ignored it, did not bring a search warrant or nothing, and it turned into a shootout. Most people's rights were violated. They were not a danger. That's the bad thing about a red flag law. It can be misinterpreted or misused, where all parties get hurt, the FBI and the assailant. But getting back to what I was saying, we do have laws that are effective, but a law is only good if you enforce it. If you don't enforce it, it might as well not exist.
Well, let me ask you all this real quick. What about the affiliate policies? What you're touching on, Clinton, and what I call an affiliate policy. So you have an amendment. The amendment is very clear to me. But then you have the stand your ground law. You have the red flag laws. You have these affiliate laws that are in the way. There, to me, you have an amendment. You have a right to protect yourself. Why have these additional affiliate laws that are creating more just
Backlog. Yeah. But you have people crisscrossing their messages and not really communicating with each other. And when they write these amendments and these affiliate laws, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing.
Not at all.
More red tape, more bureaucratic confusion. And then when people like police officers or agents have to learn these laws and interpret them, half the time they're confused and don't even know which, law to enforce.
So we're going from state to federal, I assume that's what you mean.
Well, even yeah, that's just like you said, the right and the left hand don't know what's going on. I'll use this example. What you saw with the Ahmaud Arbery and then the Trayvon Martin case, those are the two that just highlight the foolishness with the stand your ground law. And in both cases, there was a murder. But in one case, one guy was like, you know what? I was afraid. And here's the audio to prove I was afraid. No, you murdered him. But because you have a law that steps aside from the Second Amendment, we now have a conflict. Because the Second Amendment, and there are other laws that say you have the right to defend yourself, but you don't have the right to incite foolishness and independence.
So when it comes to the stand your ground law, each of those cases are definitely different. I can't remember the lady or the state that she was in, but there was a black lady who used the stand your ground law and it worked in her favor. So everything is always case by case. Me personally, I do like the stand your ground law, especially as someone who was raised by a single parent, and some of my friends who did not grow up in the best area, who police officers took 30 minutes or an hour just to come to a call. So those people, I think about people like that who needs protection immediately, and they don't have that readily available for them. So that when I think about stand your ground law, God rest Trayvon and Ahmaud Arbery, but I'm thinking more of the single mother or the guy who just moved out and he's living on his own, or the people who stay in a community that's filled with crime and drugs. That's what I think about when you stand your ground law. That's to me personally. When we talk about state laws, I think New York and Illinois have gun laws, state laws. And I mean, if you look at both of those states, ain't doing so well.
No.
All the laws that you can create is still not going to change the root cause of the problem. And really, that's Republicans and Democrats' problem. Right. Nobody's really trying to talk about the root cause. We keep all trying to talk about, we're trying to get, points on the board, trying to score a political point.
Right.
You have underground markets selling weapons to states that have these high regulations.
Can we also add that the government is participating?
Yeah.
The CIA is participating in this?
Money. Yeah.
You hit on a very good point. The government knows that this is going on, but the government gets informants, and this is not a conspiracy theory. The government gets informants involved in this stuff, and they track it, and they let these things play out, just like how Clint said. They let them play out how they're supposed to, or whichever way, and then they sit back and they react to the aftermath. The United States government is the most powerful government nation on this planet. We know a lot of things before they happen, and we just sit back. Well, I'll take that back. The CIA knows a lot of things before it happens.
The problem is we create too many government agencies, and there's a lot of bad players in some of these agencies, and they're collecting money and they're gaining control, and it's all about keeping all of us in the dark so they can control us and so they can make money off of us and our misery. I think we shouldn't have created Homeland Security. We should have busted the FBI and the CIA for not doing their job and not correlating and working together. But instead, we created another agency and called it the Homeland Security.
But that was the main reason for that, though, because they didn't work together. And the Homeland Security Agency was to get them to work together.
Now, you don't create a third department to correct the two different departments that are not doing their job unless you will wipe out the two departments and replace them with that one department. I think that was a bonehead move. Hey, you're not doing your job. You're not doing your job. Let's create another department to make you do your job. No. Just either one, replace it with something else, or two, crack down on them and reform them.
And can we also note that some of the stuff that Homeland Security proposed is kind of a threat to our constitutional rights? I'm just going to say that.
Hey, I was going to say.
And unfortunately, I think that was a Republican president who
Definitely
created
was.
that. So sweet, thank you, George Bush.
EW. If you look at violent crime, like what you said earlier, that's just not true. You look at violent crime when it comes to percentages in the red states, it's definitely higher than it is in the blue states, which have a higher population. But we want to do semantics and say, Chicago crime or New York crime, whatever. Crime is worse in Oklahoma than it is in Illinois if you look at it by percentages. It is what it is, but these are Republican talking points, and I'm glad you did your homework on the talking, but we need the facts as well.
Definitely, guys, if you're a history buff, Georgia was the worst criminal colony. We were started by prisoners, so
that's impressive.
A lot of the muskets and weapons that they were buying during the colonial days, it wasn't to keep a rebellion from occurring on the slave plantations. It's because a lot of the slave owners were ex-murderers fresh out of prison. They just wanted to kill some people. I'm sorry, but it's a prison colony.
Listen, hence why it's the cradle of the civil rights movement. Hey, so there's not a correlation. I will offer this, you all. So this is one piece before we close out. So if we're going to do all these laws and we want to hold civil rights and all these things, why can't felons who have served their time and done their thing cannot be realistic to their rights and get guns? That's unfair. That's unfair.
I don't know. It depends on their felony. If it's murder, no.
But they served their time.
But they murdered somebody. It wasn't self-defense. I mean,
so I have to. I agree with both of you. So I do think if somebody served their time, I think their rights should be given back to them, rights that they lost. However, I have to agree with Clint. If you'd have murdered somebody and you did your time, which some people only get 10 years for murdering people, but you get like 30-something years for smoking marijuana. But that's a side note. Yeah. But if you murdered somebody, I don't think you should get a gun. No,
I agree with Clinton. I agree with Clinton and Dante.
I mean, that's just like a sex offender going to work at an elementary school. No.
That's okay.
Let me offer this. I want y'all to watch this new Netflix movie called Rebel Ridge. I'm not saying everybody.
I saw that.
Everybody don't get set up, but some people, we don't know the facts of the case, and the case is what the case is because of what happened.
Yeah.
So just put in, but y'all, final thoughts before we get out of here today. We got 1 minute for final thoughts.
I do think if it was self-defense when a person killed someone, in defending themselves, maybe they should get their gun rights back. But if they outright murdered people in cold blood, no. I don't care if you served your time. You murdered people in cold blood, not even self-defense. No gun for you. Go ahead.
Oh, Mike, you go. Last thought.
I really don't. I mean, I'm just happy that I was just on the spot and I got to participate. And give my opinion. Apparently, they're ganging up on you. So.
So my final thoughts. I asked all the audience to please write your AMC theater. They have removed a movie called City of Dreams, which talks about sex trafficking. And I find it funny that Hollywood and the theater industry is moving something that's talking about modern day slavery. that's that. Just to go throw my political hat on, I am a proud Republican. I just want to say it's still Kamala Harris became the nominee, over 30-something days ago, and she has yet to have any policy platform on her website.
We'll talk about that next time.
She doesn't.
How your friend come back, Nick? What's your name, brother?
She doesn't. Mike. And he knows
Mike,
too.
Come back, Mike, in 2 weeks, come back.
That's why he's biting his lip.
No, Mike, come back in 2 weeks. We're gonna kick their ass.
Actually,
2 weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right, y'all have a great week. We'll see y'all next time.
Like that.